Employment soars. With every sector of society affected, the GAA is no exception. Take, for example, the famous Glen Rovers on the north side of Cork City, home to legendary players like Christy Ring and former Taoiseach Jack Lynch. A redevelopment of their grounds has left them with a debt of €650,000. What would the real Taoiseach make of it all?
While the Celtic Tiger was hopping around, money was being offered to us here. There were grants available. The banks were throwing money at us. And no different to any club, of course, we seized the opportunity to get our hands on this money and develop the facilities here for our members. Unfortunately then, like a lot of clubs, I suppose, nowadays, we found then when the economy turned that our revenue started to dry up. We found that really it was up to ourselves to try and get out of this because there was nobody else going to help us, you know. It
isn't on the basis that the money was spent badly, it was spent unwisely. It was there to create an environment that would attract people in to play our games, which is hurling and football. We raised the guts of €30,000 from voluntary subscriptions from our members, and we spent every penny of that on doing up our lounge and our bar, and that got people back in, at least back into the bar. They say about when you're in trouble, you must put the shoulder to the wheel, you know, and certainly on the field, the team have reflected that. Off the field, I think management within the club, the actually club members, supporters, the whole wider community have actually rolled in behind, and we've turned this thing around, you know. Whatever we have to do, Glen Rovers will always be here anyway, that's for sure.
The problems facing Portlaoise are more complex, with a staggering debt of €7 million and monthly repayments alone of €24,000. They had hoped to finance their move to a new ground with the sale of their old one. And Bord Pleanála refused planning on their old premises, and having already signed a deal on their new facility, the club was left in no man's land.
It was never envisaged that we would be paying interest on this type of a debt. It was purely, you know, that the sale of one ground would facilitate the purchase of another, and that's the two stools between which we've got caught.
When the Bord Pleanála decision was made, we didn't know. We were in an awful dilemma, like, you know, we're all voluntary men and we're not professional GAA people, and when that happened, we didn't know, you know, what to do. And, you know, as I say, 4 years ago I hadn't a grey hair in my head, and, you know, for a volunteer it has been very traumatic over the last number of years.
Can Croke Park help? Can Leinster Council help?
In fairness to Leinster Council in the first instance, they have been very helpful to us of date. I mean, you know, the GAA are not commercial lenders, they're not bankers. I know they're not a checkbook. It's not a question of just saying, here, you know, we got into difficulty, hooray, help us, sort of an effort. There's a wider issue for a lot more clubs than ourselves as well that needs to be looked at.
Why we moved was because of lack of playing facilities, and last Sunday we had an opening day here for the kids. There were probably 200 kids plus here, and that's what it was all about. Like, it was all about getting facilities for the kids in Portlaoise.
I don't know the position that we're in, you know, what lies ahead or how it's going to end. And I'd like to say, yes, NAMA is going to come to the rescue, or Croke Park are going to come to the rescue. I just don't know.
Clara GAA Club in Offaly faced a similar predicament. They bought a convent for €2.45 million on their new premises, which they intend to convert into their new clubhouse. Again, the finance was dependent on a deal to sell their old premises in the middle of the town. This hasn't happened yet.
We had quite a few pounds in the coffers when we bought, but anything we had surplus has been used both for development and for paying interest. And at the moment, we're not even able to pay all our interest because we've used anything we had surplus. Everything went as a package. The convent, we had to buy all, €2.45 million.
And how much do you owe today?
€2.45 million. Like, we're the oldest club in the country. And for the future to GAA and Offaly, we're a proud tradition in hurling and football and looking after the youth. We feel we've made the right decision, but only time will prove that.
Thomas Davis GAA Club in Tala also find themselves in trouble. The club's executive didn't provide a spokesperson, but did issue us with the following statement. They say the club bank debt at €2.5 million is significant. It arose because we had an ambitious development plan, which was to have been financed from the sale of some of the club's lands. However, they confirmed that the Dublin County Board and Croke Park are fully aware of the club's financial position and have been a great source of guidance in recent months. So can the Leinster Council do anything to help?
When you look at the overall picture, you know, there are 550 clubs in Leinster at this moment in time, and a small number of those clubs, you know, you would have to say a small number of clubs are in financial difficulty, and we are certainly looking at the situation and looking at it very seriously. We have to try and help these clubs, obviously not in a financial sense, but in an advisory capacity. We have to row in behind them and give them whatever advice is available.
Not every club is in financial difficulty. Take, for instance, famous Nemo Rangers of Cork, 7 times All-Ireland club champions. They moved from Capwell to here 7 years ago.
A developer approached us 7 years ago, and we struck a deal with him to give our old premises on the South Douglas Road to move down to this new facility here in Trabbeg. Thankfully, Marty, at the moment we're debt-free. That is due to the finances that we generate here from month to month on our Astro pitches and the letting out of our facilities here in Trabbeg. I can see where other GAA clubs are struggling to survive in this climate at the moment with bank repayments and what have you. Luckily enough, we have none of that, so we're a little bit ahead of everybody else in that concern.
And what would you put that down to?
Well, I suppose really the people that came before me and the fantastic deal they struck with the developer.
That was all about timing, really.
Absolutely, all timing.
In Northwest Mayo, Belmullet GAA Club embarked on a €1.8 million development that included playing fields and an impressive clubhouse. For decades they rented, but now they finally have a place they can call home. Despite the intimidating costs, incredibly, all they owe is €100,000.
Our loan is based on our capacity to repay over a 15-year period, and we are quite confident that we will be able to repay our loan of €100,000 over 15 years.
So how did they do it? Being a Gaeltacht area, they got a government grant of over $800,000. The Corrib Gas Fund saw Shell contribute almost $500,000. Fiontar Corach gave $25,000. Roddy Joinery in London $50,000. While the club raised through local fundraising $400,000. It leaves the club with a modest loan repayment.
We are in the Gaeltacht, and we got tremendous support from Ren the Gaeltacht and the Minister at the time, Minister Eamon O'Keefe. In relation to the Shell project, we are very happy that we took that funding because it's tremendous facilities for the young people of the Belmullet area. So they're entitled to have good facilities, good grounds as any other community around Ireland. We're delighted that we have got the Shell funding, yes.
Well, from a financial perspective was that we were going to have the money in place and knew where the money was going to come from before we ever laid a brick or laid a sod on a pitch. We had to have the funding in place. Otherwise, we weren't going to put this club into debt in the future and everything like that. And that's what we had. That was our main objective from the start.
And finally, to the leafy suburbs of Dublin's north side and the curious case of Castleknock. A mere 13 years in existence, with a membership of 1,500, they have developed a magnificent complex to the tune of $1.7 million. How has this been achieved?
Well, I think it was down to the dedication and talent of the people involved in the club. We grew as a club, and in 2004 it was viewed that we had to have a home of our own. We got a bank loan of $1.2 million. We amalgamated our Lotto direct debit scheme with our membership, which increased our monthly direct debit income by over 50%. That guaranteed monthly income stream covers our debt.
So Dave, in 5 years, 10 years' time, from a financial perspective, where do you think Castleknock GAA will be?
From a financial perspective, I think we'll be still in a position where we can manage our debt and not have a burden, a heavy burden of debt on our membership. And then we can focus on the field, promoting our teams, promoting our games, and moving forward on and off the field in tandem.
So while the country tries to get back on its feet, there's no doubt the GAA has its share of problems also. But like it has done in the face of adversity down through history, the association has many positives to take on the challenge for the road ahead.
Yeah, that report by Marty Morrissey. Cyril Farrell, you can't blame clubs for being ambitious, for wanting to improve their facilities. But a lot of the clubs mentioned there, a lot of clubs around the country, they needed the good times to roll on for another few years. And as we all know to our cost, that hasn't happened.
Yeah, Michael, and I know there's different economic times. But if you look realistically, most of the clubs that are in big trouble, they looked at a purchase and they bought it. and they assumed that they were going to get, say, so many million for their own premises. And in the meantime, the bottom fell out of that. So therefore, they had purchased something before they sold their own. Now, it's easy to be wise afterwards. Now, the only one that came out pretty well or below in Nemo, where the developer did a deal. They had one lad doing the deal. The developer, there was only one person doing the 2 deals. It's been interesting to know how that developer is getting on now, by the way, because he probably wants something for double the price as well. Just tough times down there, economic times, wrong timing, but like they're in trouble, and like it's going to be hard enough to get out of it. They're going to have to work miracles to get out of it.
And I suppose the snag here, Bernard, was clubs, they had to buy first, because you have to have some place to play. You can't sell your own grounds and then have no place for your members, so you have to kind of buy first to provide fields. But then, as Cyril said, when the bottom fell out of it.
The one thing I would have to say there, Cyril, is that, you know, if you look at it, they did that in good faith, right? But, I mean, look at the banks and the financial institutions that, you know, the reckless lending that actually gave, knowing what we know, and they knew that, as you said, the purchase, pending on something else being sold or bought, I mean, it was absolutely crazy for banks, the advice they were getting, how they were allowed to do that, giving the money. So these clubs, in this situation, not the smaller clubs that are under pressure, I think there's a two-pronged, a different type of situation. Is that if you look at it, these clubs should not be suffering the pain on their own. The financial institutions that lended recklessly should be sharing in that pain with those. But the smaller clubs as well, I think it should be all relative. Junior clubs, intermediate clubs, every corner of Ireland, like they're all suffering in different ways. They're a little bit different and unique. But I think everyone has, as Tomas said, shoulder to the wheel. Everyone has to do a little bit more and not take the clubs for granted, because they have been taken for granted. Social outlet is fantastic what they're providing, and everyone needs to do a little bit for all the clubs. But the bigger clubs need to sit down with the financial institutions that made a bigger mistake than they did themselves.
Sure. Another worrying aspect of this, Cyril, is it's not just a couple of, or some of the clubs around the country that have problems, it's county boards.
Oh yeah, even in Galway at the moment, I know there's a couple of million in debt, because again, they purchased a farm or two to make it into a centre of excellence, and the next thing, the whole thing fell out of the market, and now they're kind of left with the land, worth not, I suppose, half what they paid for it, and they have to pay even, say, the interest on that loan. And as Bernard says here, like it'll be interesting when it gets, this will come down further down the line, how the government deal with this, because this is a social issue, and they are providing great facilities. So this is only the start of this story. This story is a long, long way to run.
Yeah, because, I mean, we've always recognised, and the country does recognise, that the GAA historically holds a special place in it. So, as Cyril said, would you see, Bernard, government intervention here? Not, I suppose, the government have any money either, now as you come to think of it.
I think, first of all, the clubs are going to have to come together as one. As one, all the GAA clubs in Ireland are a massive organisation. They've exceptional power together, not isolated on their own. So I think even provincially they're going to have to come collectively together, and if it means dealing with one institution, getting better deals. I mean, this thing of overdrafts costing a fortune, short-term loans, they're going to have to debt restructuring over 30, 40 years. Whatever it takes to keep a club going, they're the cornerstone of the community, and what they're giving to the youth, they're saving the state a fortune in so many different ways. So I think the likes of VAT, there's a situation, you know, reclaimable has to be looked at. Definitely rates. I mean, I know 2 clubs in County Meath, 20,000 each they're playing in rates. So there's a lot of things. Think outside the box. But if people think there's problems now, wait for the next 2 or 3 or 4 years. It's going to get worse, and we all need to think outside the box collectively as one.
All right, lads, thanks very much for that. Okay, that's where we're going to